It's 6 p.m. on a Wednesday here in Korea. Welcome to our newscast. I'm Daniel Che. Let's start with the headlines. At least 2 terror suspects have died after French police carried out operations to capture the mastermind of Friday's terror attacks. Police targeted a building in a suburb of northern Paris where 6 suspects are believed to have been holed up. In response to the recent Paris attacks, Korea plans to inject $85 million in terrorism prevention efforts to improve the safety of citizens and upgrade national security. In Manila, where the APEC summit is being held, President Park Geunhye holds talks with Canada's newly elected Prime Minister on the Korea-Canada Free Trade Agreement and climate change cooperation. 2 suspects believed to have been a part of Friday's deadly attacks in Paris are killed after a long shootout in a northern Paris suburb. A 3rd victim is believed to be a bystander. However, this has not been confirmed. Kwon Jang-ho joins us from the news center. Jang-ho, let's start with some details on the operation.
Yes, hi Daniel. It started at 4:20 a.m. local time in Saint-Denis, a suburb of northern Paris. That was about 5.5 hours ago now. Residents were woken up by sounds of gunfire and explosions, which continued in bursts over the next 3 hours. 2 or 3 men were initially thought to have barricaded themselves in an apartment and exchanged gunfire with the police. It has since been reported that 3 people died in the operation, 1 allegedly a bystander, and that 3 suspects have also been arrested. One of those who died is said to be a woman who killed herself detonating a suicide belt. Some local residents were evacuated, while others were advised to stay indoors and away from windows.
Jang-ho, can you give us some specifics about the suspects?
There has been no official confirmation yet, but it is thought that the targets of the operation were initially Abdelhamid Aboud, who is said to be the mastermind behind Friday's attacks, and Salah Abdeslam, one of the shooters who is also on the run, as well as a 3rd suspect who had only been noticed on Tuesday after being spotted in video footage in the same car with Salah Abdeslam. It was widely reported in the last couple of days, that Abdelhamid is one of those who had planned the attacks, but until today, he was thought to be in Syria. Whether the French security forces already knew he was in the country or not is still unclear. While it does seem the raid is over for now, with no shots or explosions having been heard for the last couple of hours, French authorities have reminded the media that the operation is still ongoing, so we can expect more details in the next few hours or so.
All right, thank you for that, Jang-ho. Moving on, the hacking group Anonymous claims to have taken down 5,500 Twitter accounts tied to the militant group that calls itself Islamic State. The collective recently declared cyber war on their terror organization in the wake of the Paris terror attacks. Anonymous also published the web addresses of alleged ISIS-affiliated websites, dark web pages, Twitter and Tumblr accounts, Facebook pages, and web servers. The information even includes the physical address of a person it claims is an IS recruiter in Europe. None of the details that have been shared have been independently confirmed yet. In the wake of the Paris attacks, Korea's ruling Saint-Denis party and the government have agreed to allocate extra funds to help prevent possible attacks in Korea. Kim Myung-gil tells us more about the decisions made during Wednesday's anti-terror meeting.
The government and the ruling Saint-Denis party have agreed to allocate an extra $85 million for terrorism prevention measures in Korea.
I believe the newly allocated budget that we agreed upon with the government will help improve the safety of Korean citizens and enhance national security.
The extra budget allocation will be used to purchase 5 armed high-speed boats, personal weapons for the military and police, equipment to detect biochemical agents, vaccines, and bulletproof vests. They also agreed to revise the nation's aviation laws to tighten security at airports and aboard aircraft. The government also plans to revise related legislation to make it mandatory for Korean nationals living overseas to provide fingerprints when entering the country if they plan to stay more than 90 days. They are currently not required to do so. Also, foreigners and Koreans living overseas who depart Korea will have their personal information screened by Korea's Justice Ministry before being given a boarding pass. As part of the planned changes, rival parties activated relevant parliamentary committees on Wednesday to discuss legislating anti-terrorism bills. The country's first anti-terror bill was proposed in 2001, following the U.S. 9/11 attacks, and a number of anti-terror bills are still pending at the National Assembly. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
President Park Geunhye held back-to-back summits with her Canadian and Filipino counterparts ahead of Thursday's APEC summit in Manila. Hwang Sung-hee, who is traveling with the president, files this report.
President Park's main topics for discussion with Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau were the Korea-Canada Free Trade Agreement and climate change cooperation. Wednesday's summit was their first meeting since Mr. Trudeau took office early this month. Opening the talks, President Park expressed hopes that Canada will see real change under Trudeau's leadership, as it did when his father Pierre Trudeau was in office. In his victory speech, the new Canadian leader had said that it's time for a real change in Canada. Noting the deep historical friendship between the two countries, Trudeau said their bilateral free trade deal was a great one, but called for closer business ties. The Korea-Canada FTA, Ottawa's first trade pact in Asia, came into force in January this year. With Philippines President Benigno Aquino, President Park discussed bolstering political, military, and economic cooperation. The two leaders also talked about beefing up protection for Korean nationals there, as the Southeast Asian nation is notorious for having the most number of crimes targeting Koreans. 9 Koreans have been murdered there this year alone. The back-to-back summits were held on the sidelines of the APEC summit in Manila. President Park also met with the APEC Business Advisory Council and held unofficial talks with the Pacific Alliance, which is a Latin American trade bloc composed of Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News, Manila.
Speculation increases over a possible Pyongyang visit by UN Chief Ban Ki-moon next week. While Chinese media report it's on, the UN says no. Song Ji-sun has the latest.
Another report, this time with a fixed date for UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's visit to Pyongyang. Citing an official at the North Korea Central News Agency, China's state-run Xinhua News Agency reported Ban will fly to North Korean capital next Monday, November 23rd, for a 4-day visit. Reports first surfaced that Ban would visit Pyongyang this week, but the chances of that have been cut slim given his remaining agenda set in New York for Thursday. However, after a no comment to the initial report, the UN released a statement on Wednesday saying the Secretary General will not be traveling to DPRK next week due to his intense schedule already being filled with travel throughout the week. But the UN added that Ban will continue to work for peace, stability, and dialogue on the Korean Peninsula, as he always has done. If he does set foot in Pyongyang, Ban is almost certain to sit down with the North leader Kim Jong-un to talk about its nuclear weapons program and human rights issues. The UN chief had met the South President Park Geunhye on the sidelines of the G20 summit last weekend in Turkey, and is slated to meet with her again at the East Asia Summit this weekend, where the two may discuss more ways to bring peace and prosperity in the region. Both ruling and opposition parties at Seoul's parliament have responded, saying they welcome Ban's visit to the north if it takes place, hoping for a greater stability on the Korean Peninsula. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
A renowned Washington-based think tank has expressed concern North Korea could launch some low-level provocations next year. Some analysts believe certain military moves could be undertaken to deflect attention away from the regime's internal problems. Kim Yeon-bin reports.
Chief Korea analyst with the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Victor Cha, and researcher Lisa Collins predict North Korea could conduct low-level provocations sometime next year. In the think tank's global forecast released on Tuesday, the two state that the North's leader is vulnerable to attacks over his legitimacy since taking power. The report says the gap between the regime and his people is growing as increasing external pressures are shaking the North Korean leadership's stability. The researchers emphasize that projecting weakness is the last thing Pyongyang wants. To distract attention from its unstable government, researchers say North Korea could attempt to project a strong image through its military strengths and showcase Kim Jong-un's grip on power. They say low-scale provocations could be in the works as it presents the regime's military capabilities without provoking full-scale war. The report also says North Korean society is starting to be informed of the outside world, with markets playing a greater role in people's livelihoods, helping to bring in outside information to the secluded nation.
North Korean society is becoming more informed as many now travel to China and move throughout their own country, so it's inevitable to clash with the power-concentrated regime. Unlike the past, it will be difficult to exclude its people from hearing the truth, creating a heavy burden on the communist regime.
Another sign of leadership struggles is the purging of around 70 top military aides, including Kim Jong-un's uncle Chang Song-taek and Defense Minister Hyun Yong-chol. The two analysts say these are key signs of the regime's weaknesses. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
In the tech realm, the Samsung Electronics outstripped its rivals in smartphone sales in emerging markets in the third quarter. According to market research firm Strategy Analytics on Wednesday, the top Korean brand smartphones ranked first out of 14 countries in what it calls the next 15 emerging markets. The countries include Southeast Asian nations as well as Australia, Nigeria, and the Netherlands, where the smartphone market is expanding. Samsung sold the most smartphone in every country on the list, excluding the Philippines. The Korean tech giant far outpaced its rivals in Egypt, Turkey, and Romania, where it bit off half of the market share. LG Electronics has announced that its smart TVs will provide thousands of movies and TV shows through Google Play Movies and TV, making it the first Korean manufacturer to do so. Starting this month, the Google Play app will be rolled out to LG's WebOS smart TVs as well as models that use earlier platforms. Users will be able to buy or rent titles on their TVs and watch them on their smartphones, tablets, or PCs. An LG official says the smart TV market is growing rapidly and meeting the demand for fresher, higher quality content is the company's highest priority. LG customers in the United States, Britain, Australia, and Canada will be the first to receive the Google update. Credit card spending by foreign visitors to Korea slumped to a two-year low in the third quarter of this year, tumbling almost 40% on year. According to data compiled by the Bank of Korea, foreign visitors put $2 billion on their plastic in the July to September period. That's down more than 26% on quarter. The central bank attributes the drop to the outbreak of Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, in late May, which scared away tourists, especially those from China. Credit card spending by Koreans overseas over the same period was around $3.5 billion, down 0.5% compared to the previous quarter. Many people who suffer from depression say they can't live without antidepressants. While the drugs are easily available, many Koreans continue to shun it due to social stigma. Kwon Jang-ho takes a closer look.
The OECD's latest Health at a Glance report shows South Korea has the second lowest consumption of antidepressants among its member nations at 20 doses a day for every 1,000 people. That's a third of the OECD average of 58 doses a day. Chile was the only country with a lower consumption rate than Korea. Iceland had the highest prescribing rate at 118 daily doses. For a country with one of the highest usage of antibiotics and other drugs, the latest report may come as welcome news, but it seems contradictory considering Korea has the highest suicide rate in the OECD. Untreated depression is the #1 cause of suicide, so treating depression early is crucial. However, many Koreans remain reluctant to seek medical help for mental health issues as it still carries a heavy stigma. Experts say that in order to lower the suicide rate, attitudes toward treating depression should be changed so people feel comfortable speaking to a health professional about their feelings. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
Welcome news for those who can't live without their cup of joes. A new study found that people who drink a moderate amount of coffee every day may help you live longer. According to researchers at Harvard University, drinkers of both caffeinated and decaf coffee were at a lower risk of death from heart disease, diabetes, neurological diseases, and even suicide. The researchers analyzed health data from more than 208,000 people over 30 years. However, experts noted that this was an observational study based on self-reported data and does not show a cause and effect relationship. The study was published in the latest edition of the journal Circulation. Winter in Korea is expected to be slightly warmer but wetter this year, resulting from intense El Niño conditions. According to the Korea Meteorological Administration, this is because surface waters in the tropical Pacific have continued to exceed the average annual temperature by 2 degrees Celsius. The El Niño climate pattern is expected to peak this winter and is set to become one of the strongest since the year 1950. The El Niño phenomenon occurs when sea temperatures in the mid-eastern Pacific Ocean rise during winter. These are the stories we're following at this hour. For more updates, do tune in at 10 p.m. Korea time for News Center with Moon Geunhye. From all of us here at Arirang News, thank you for watching.